Mr. William sat at the table, holding his familiar fountain pen. His grandson's birthday card lay in front of him, just missing a signature. He lifted the pen. But his hand trembled slightly. The ink smeared along the edge of the paper. The word Grandpa came out slanted, smaller, uneven, nothing like before. He paused, using his other hand to steady the one that shook. His 6-year-old grandson tilted his head and asked, "Grandpa, why are you writing so slowly?" He forced a smile. "My hand's a little shaky, just give me a moment." Grandma, sitting nearby, whispered, "Lately he keeps saying it's just age." But when did his hands start shaking? When did the spoon begin slipping while pouring tea? When did he start walking slightly tilted, no longer upright? When did he grow quiet, and when did his smile begin to fade? It all began with a trembling signature. A signature, seemingly simple, yet the very first sign of a silent illness. Parkinson's doesn't arrive with noise. It brushes past, then slowly steals control. Could it just be weak hands from aging? Or is it the first sign of a silent illness beginning to show? Why does your handwriting suddenly become smaller, harder to control? Why does your hand tremble, not from exhaustion, but while resting? Why do your arms feel stiff when putting on a shirt, washing your face, or buttoning a sleeve? Seniors might think, "I'm just slowing down a bit." But in that very thought, what are we overlooking? Could your body be speaking, while you quietly brush it aside? Could these small, everyday struggles be early signs of Parkinson's? And if so, what awaits if we continue to dismiss them? This video will help seniors recognize, the early signs of Parkinson's can be subtle, but they're not harmless. We'll learn to tell the difference between normal aging and the warning signs that require close attention and early action. You'll receive a simple, effective checklist to observe symptoms at home. No need for panic, just the right understanding to avoid missing the golden window. Because when caught early, Parkinson's can be managed. And your loved ones can still live independently, with joy and dignity. Don't let small movements quietly turn your life upside down someday. Stay with us until the end, and you'll have a clear guide to watch for signs and take timely steps. Helping you protect the most precious thing for your loved ones, their independence and dignity. Explaining some background, dear seniors, the human body is like a finely tuned orchestra. Every movement, from lifting a hand, taking a step, to a gentle smile, relies on perfect coordination. And the conductor of this orchestra is the brain, especially a part called the basal ganglia. This region acts like the maestro, guiding each rhythm and smooth transition. But when this area weakens, the conductor loses control, the instruments fall out of sync. That's when we start noticing small tremors, shrinking handwriting, and unsteady steps. Parkinson's disease doesn't begin with a fall, it starts with these subtle offbeat rhythms. The root cause is a gradual loss of a brain chemical called dopamine. Dopamine works like engine oil, helping signals flow smoothly from the brain to the muscles. When dopamine runs low, signals become tangled, muscles react slowly and stiffen. That's why daily actions start feeling harder, not because the body is weaker, but because the brain's signals aren't flowing like they used to. You can imagine it like a blurry map, the road is still there, but you can't see the way. Or a train that loses its signal, still running, but shaky and uncertain. Your body hasn't lost its potential, it's simply waiting to be realigned. And that realignment can only begin if we spot the early signs in time. Specific behaviors and signs of groups. Group 1, movement, small movements that reveal big changes. Have you ever noticed your hand slightly trembling when doing nothing? As if a tiny wave quietly passes through while you're just resting. This tremor often shows up when sitting still, and disappears when you move. It's easy to overlook, many seniors assume it's just fatigue or low blood pressure. But in fact, it might be the first echo of a brain region under stress. Another sign is shorter steps, feet dragging even on smooth, level floors. It feels like the legs didn't catch the signal, hesitating at each move. Even turning your body while standing becomes awkward and slow. Something as simple as reaching for a glass feels like you're tangled in invisible threads. There's also stiffness in the morning, like your body hasn't woken up with your mind. Not pain, but slow motion, taking longer to dress, buttoning becomes a challenge. That's when the senior's motor system starts falling out of rhythm, like a slackened string. But movement is only part of the story. What about the mind, and connection? Group 2, Communication and Cognition. When voice and expression begin to fade. Have you been asked, why does your voice sound so quiet lately? Though you didn't notice? That's a sign of reduced voice volume. Speech loses strength and becomes hard to hear. It's not sadness, but the vocal muscles starting to respond more slowly. Next comes the loss of facial expression, often called Parkinson's mask. It's not because you are upset, but your facial muscles grow less flexible, harder to show emotions. Loved ones may think you're angry or tired, when in truth, you're fully alert inside. Another sign is shrinking handwriting, letters getting smaller line after line. Some say, writing a card, I had to stop 3 times, my hand was stiff, the words tiny. Not because of hand fatigue, but because the brain sends weaker signals to fine movements. When familiar things become difficult, you may start to lose confidence. Group 3, Connection and Emotion. When closeness fades without reason. Have you smiled less during family meals? Not from sadness, but because facial reflexes no longer spread joy the way they used to. Some seniors describe feeling withdrawn, hesitant to connect, even though they crave closeness. That fading connection isn't from lack of love, but from a body not responding as it once did. Emotions shift more easily. Sadness, worry, or irritability appear without clear cause. Others may not understand, but inside, it feels like a quiet storm. This isn't weakness, it's your brain asking gently for support. And only when someone watches closely, and loves deeply, can these signs truly be heard. Let me share with you a story of 2 diverging paths, 2 fates shaped by one choice. Mrs. Ellen, 73 years old, was the first in her dance group to be asked, why don't you smile like you used to? She still attended regularly, still sat in her usual seat, still watched others with warmth. But dancing gradually became a series of tense movements for her. She could no longer keep up, nor change direction with ease as before. Then one day, her hand trembled slightly while tying her shoelaces. She thought it was the cold, lack of sleep, just age. No one suspected it was the first sign of Parkinson's. 6 months later, she started walking slower, writing smaller, speaking more softly. She withdrew from the group, stopped making calls, and began avoiding going out. By the time her family noticed, the nerve damage had already progressed significantly. Medications began, physical therapy started, but she kept saying one thing, if only I had paid attention earlier. At that same time, Mr. Mark, 69 years old, a retired history teacher, noticed his right hand slightly trembled while holding the TV remote. He remembered his father had Parkinson's, and quietly observed himself for 2 weeks. No panic, no denial, he went to see a specialist. An MRI was done, motor tests recorded, the evaluation was clear. Diagnosis, early signs of Parkinson's, very mild, no major impairment yet. Mr. Mark began changing his habits that very day. He ate more antioxidant-rich foods, did brain-supporting exercises, stuck to a sleep routine. He joined a local support group, shared experiences, learned, stayed mentally strong. 2 years later, he still walks every morning, still volunteers teaching, still wears a bright smile. One delayed action, thinking it wasn't serious, the other took charge by understanding the truth. The result, one life gradually shrinking, the other expanding every single day. And in between those two paths, was the timely recognition of the very first signs. Common misunderstandings that cause dangerous delays. Many older Americans believe hand tremors are just a normal part of aging. Countless seniors think slower writing and stiff hands are simply due to morning stiffness. They reassure themselves that a bit of massage or rest will make it better over time. Some are told, "Don't worry, it's just a mild tremor, happens to everyone as they age." But that seemingly harmless comment causes many seniors to miss their golden window of early detection. Some think Parkinson's always starts with strong tremors and a strange walking pattern. In reality, most cases begin with tiny, subtle changes that are easy to overlook. Because they think it's nothing serious, people often delay going to the doctor. They wait until the signs are obvious, their body starts to lose control, and by then, it's already advanced. Another misunderstanding is the fear of being labeled as mentally ill after diagnosis. Seniors sometimes hide their symptoms, afraid to worry their family, or to seem weak. But hiding symptoms doesn't make them go away, it only makes treatment harder. This doesn't just affect physical health, it slowly erodes confidence and daily joy. By the time the truth is uncovered, loved ones are often left shocked and blaming themselves. They remember seeing the signs, feeling the doubt, but chose to believe a false sense of safety. The more we understand these misconceptions, the more we can change the outcome for our loved ones. Seniors don't need to be strong in silence, they need to be heard and supported in time. And it's the children, the grandchildren, the partners, who can make all the difference. Some observation tips and a home checklist for early action. We can't change the past, but we can start observing from today. Begin with a small notebook dedicated to tracking subtle changes in your loved one. For 7 days, jot down even the tiniest unusual behaviors you notice. Hand tremors while pouring water or holding a fork, walking slower than usual, shaky hand while writing notes. Record the exact time, situation, and how often each behavior occurs. If your loved one is a senior living alone, ask open-ended questions instead of direct ones. Did you have any trouble buttoning your shirt this week? Have you noticed any changes in your handwriting? Did your legs feel weaker while walking to the market? Avoid direct questions like, "Are your hands shaking?" They may get defensive or hide symptoms. If you observe any of the following signs, write them down to discuss with a doctor. A stiff or less expressive face, hands that feel stiff or tremble slightly when starting to move, handwriting becoming smaller for no clear reason, trouble turning around or putting on a coat, voice that gets softer or harder to hear, without being hoarse. Besides taking notes, try filming short videos during everyday activities. Visual clips help doctors make more accurate assessments. If your senior lives far away, ask someone nearby to help observe using this checklist. For those who hesitate to see a doctor, try these simple at-home tests. Hand them a full glass of water and ask them to drink slowly. Give them a coin and ask them to place it into a narrow slot. Ask them to write a short sentence. Watch the speed and letter size. Not every symptom means Parkinson's, but unusual signs should not be ignored. Because what matters most isn't just a diagnosis, it's preserving independence for our loved ones. Seniors don't want to be forced, but they deeply need someone who understands and walks with them. By observing carefully and sharing gently, you're offering them a real chance at timely recovery. Some afternoons, Mrs. Ellen sits silently by the window, gently running her trembling hand over an old photo. That photo was taken when she was still strong, holding her grandson's hand on a walk in the park. Now, her steps are slower, her handwriting no longer clear, and her hand sometimes drops even a spoonful of hot soup. Her grandson, the little boy in the photo, is now grown, rarely noticing the small changes in her. Until the day she slipped lightly in the bathroom, and no one realized for almost 2 hours. It was that very moment that shocked the whole family. The truth was, The changes had been happening every day, but they had let them pass as something normal. Seniors are not afraid of aging, they fear becoming invisible in the eyes of their loved ones. A timely look of concern, a gentle question, can change the course of an entire journey. If you observe with love, you'll notice what others overlook. It's not just a trembling hand, it's a silent cry for help from a heart growing weaker with each beat. And when your heart connects with theirs, even the smallest sign becomes a precious call to action. We cannot stop time, but we can preserve trust, through the simple act of listening each day. Seniors don't expect us to preserve their youth. They just want us not to ignore the small changes each day. A simple question, "Mom, have you noticed anything strange with your hands?" could be a turning point. One moment of watching Dad write his name could be the chance to help him stay independent. Don't wait until they no longer recognize you to start worrying. Begin with things that are small and deeply real. A senior's confidence, dignity, and sense of connection don't come from medication. They come from being heard, from loving eyes, and from a heart that knows how to notice. You don't need to be a doctor to help your parents live well after 60. You just need to look at them, closely, patiently, and with love. If you've seen any signs like the ones in this video, share them in the comments. And if you're walking this journey with a senior, send this video to someone you care about. Because you might be the one person who helps them hold on to a meaningful life in their later years. A trembling hand while pouring tea is not just aging weakness. A broken, uneven signature is not just hand fatigue. A wince while buttoning a shirt is not just laziness. Seniors are sending signals. Tiny signals, but deeply real. Remember these images, hands trembling like dry leaves in a gentle breeze. Writing a name that looks like tangled scribbles out of control. Buttoning a shirt as if the buttons are working against them. Walking as if on slippery tile, cautious and unsure. A stiff face trying hard just to smile. And remember one important truth, the smallest signs are quiet cries from a body asking for help. The sooner you observe, the more chance seniors have to hold on to their independence, dignity, and connection.